So I reached out to y'all for help in this video because I wanted to know from the viewer's perspective, what do you guys feel is a wildly underrated designer fragrance that's a must-have in everyone's collection? And y'all gave me some very surprising fragrances, some that I agree with, some that I'm not very familiar with, but all seem to speak to a particular characteristic that kind of shows what type of time y'all on.
You know what time it is? It's about to be that time.
Let's roll map so I can put you on to 10 underrated designer fragrances that are a must-have in your collection. Listen, one of my beautiful peoples, you know who it is. This is your boy, C to the U to the B to the A. Great list. Now, it was way more than 10 that were listed, but some of these were repetitive and others just kind of caught my attention, either agreeing with them, curious about them, and some of them I'm like, oh, why?
But why though?
Different strokes for different folks. Now, one of the most common things that were listed in this video are specific lines, not just singular fragrances, but whole lines, which wasn't really what I was asking about. I mean, like, yo, it opened up my eyes, like, yeah, maybe I should check out more from these particular lines. One of the first ones mentioned was by the house of Guerlain, and that's the entire 𝐲𝐿 line. Now, I haven't smelled the entire line. I own about 4 or 5 from the 𝐲𝐿 line, and I want to tell you that they're gorgeous, very classy. I do feel that they are wildly underrated for the most part. However, there are some 𝐲𝐿s like the 𝐲𝐿, the full white bottle, which is that summertime almondy, amazing scent that I only reach for it in the summer, but it's a must-have at least one time to wear in the summer every year because it's that unique and beautiful, but it's also kind of bumped up in price because of the hype. Now I have the cologne, the extreme, the extreme parfum, the original. I have a few of them, and I must say that it is an incredibly underrated line with incredible niche quality and this very specific DNA that they exude, particularly in that nutty space that's absolutely legendary. So yeah, I agree with you, that Guerlain L'Homme line, underrated. Next one. This is one of those, what? YSL Myself is wildly underrated. The comment in the community line is like, yo, it never gets the respect that it deserves. And I'm one of the people who disrespected it right from jump, like off rip. Maybe I was a little harsh, and there's a lot of satire that goes along with my environment, but it was also wildly basic. Like, what's the underrated? If I'm gonna be objective, right? All right, let's backtrack. Let me be a little objective. Yeah, some people just like those fragrances and they hit. If that's the perspective that you're coming from, then yeah, I can definitely see the compliment grabbing capabilities. But if you're already, like most people watching these channels, like in the depths of this fucking fragrance game, like that shit is gonna come off mad regular. So it really depends at what level of the space in the fragrance game you are. If you're entry level, then YSL Myself, yeah, I would definitely put it in that underrated category. But if you're already head deep 50 plus in the space, that shit is regular, and I would not consider it underrated at all. Next one. Now, David in the community board was like, yo, Gucci Guilty EDP, the one that has rose and chili, that's the one I feel is wildly underrated. And David is in that space. He's one of the people that I was talking about that got 50 plus. He indicated he got over 60 fragrances and he keeps going back for that one. So that's a fragrance that calls him. Now, Gucci Guilty EDP is a fire fragrance. Like, that Gucci Guilty lineup has some hits. There's a lot of redundancy in there as well. But also, when it comes to the lines, you'll find a little something in a line that hits beautifully, no matter how basic-y it is. And that's probably why the previous person was like, yo, maybe YSL Myself just hit that right point. Because in reality, the Gucci Guilty Parfum Pour Homme one, that one does what the EDP does for him. So I feel that within those basic bitch lines, like, you can find fucking gems that just speak beautifully off your skin. Now, I vaguely remember the EDP, but if David says it's overrated and he has 60 plus fragrances, maybe it's onto something and you might want to sample it and see if you got that same reaction. Next one. I definitely agree with this one. Roberto Cavalli Uomo. How many times have I preached on the line? That's one of the fragrance lines that should have been mentioned on this list. That entire Uomo line is spectacular. The Golden Anniversary, the Deep Desire, the original Uomo, the La Notte. Bro, that line is wildly underrated for designer lineup. Like, the shit just has hit after hit after hit. Granted, nowadays it had a little bit of a little hype bubble and has exploded, and some of the pieces are more difficult to find than others. However, I think when it comes to designer lines, I'd be confident to buy the entire lineup. Based on my personal experience with those fragrances, beautiful. It has a little bit of fuckboy. It has some deep, rich, ambery darkness. The well-known one mentioned in this joint is an overall signature scent beauty gem that I would put in the space, as far as versatility is concerned, of a La Nuit de l'Homme of Yves Saint Laurent, in that space. So yeah, 100% underrated. Granted, it might be difficult to find and you might pay a premium, which sucks balls. Try not to, but super good. Great suggestion. Now, Richard indicated that he feels like the House of 𝗙𝗏 should get more love, and I'm like, I think they've reached out to enough content creators at this point that they've gotten a decent amount of exposure. I think, because I've seen it in enough thumbnails, but personally, the fragrances are very good, like extraordinarily good for me, for my personal taste. I think other creators have shared the same sentiment, because there's nothing off-putting or basic about those scents. The titanium ended up being a little bit more my speed, but I don't know, honestly, like now going back to thinking about them, they're all really fucking good, and they're priced pretty like moderately, like competitively speaking. But I don't think that the hype is like underrated right now. I think right now is where the buzz is at its peak, maybe, or where it's currently at. But do I think the fragrances are solid? Absolutely. Even the women ones are really nice. They go on a classy space. They have a little bit of like a slutty kind of feel ones too, and the gentleman ones have a nice amount of versatility to them. And off of my shit, they smell great and perform really solid. So I don't know if I would call them underrated. I think right now they're just perfectly rated. Next one. This one's an interesting one. The Givenchy Gentleman line. Like, that's an underrated house, and I agree. I think strongly, based on the ones that I have, which are like 4 or so, underrated as fuck. You got your Privé hype, and that's always been there, right? But the Gentleman line, there are some that hit a little bit of fastest, like it'll interest the niche snobs a little bit, and it definitely satisfies all the designer hype beasts. But the ones that are in between, like at least the ones that I have, absolutely hit beautifully. I don't feel any suffering on performance off of my skin. I think they have enough variety within the ones that I have smelled in the line to have a collection lined up like that Walmo line. They got the fuckboy, they got the booze, they got the leather, they got the iris. There's a lot of facets and a lot of personalities within that line that make it very dynamic. So yeah, I'm gonna agree with that shit. That shit is an underrated line, and we should all be tapping into more of that Givenchy look. Now this one, I'm dropping the ball heavy duty. Costume National 1. I forgot what I read that it's inspired by, because it has some sort of like, oh, this kind of smells sort of like something. And it's been on my to buy list for a minute. But from the last time that I checked, which was a while ago, the prices were a little, bumped up a little bit. I'm like, oh shit, but I don't remember. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so according to Fragrantica, it's in the latent space. So I just saw a quick listing that it was like $123, which is not bad at all. So maybe I'll pick it up today just to get my paws on it, because it has been on my list, but I have a very large list of fragrances that I want to get, and shit gets lost in the sauce. So for 120 something bucks online, I'm not gonna go crazy. I know the fragrances was probably gray market sitting in that $60 space at one point, so I'm probably paying a premium, but it's not gonna break my eyes. It's not a $250, $300, $400 fragrance. But Costume National 1 is a fragrance that has been in the comments for a significant amount of time, and I haven't talked about the brand in my channel, but yeah, maybe it is underrated, because I ain't heard shit about it as far as videos are concerned. Then again, I should watch more. Next, Dior Homme Cologne. I could see that. Summertime vibes. It's all about like that limoncello icy situation, right? That fragrance has 100% been in like some of my summer hits, and it is a very solid performing fragrance for the summertime. I think it's pretty. I think it's well in that designer-ish space. It's well in that limoncello, fresh, aquatic, bright, sour, citric space with a little bit of an iris kiss, giving it its Dior Homme-ish DNA. Now, is it underrated? Maybe for the summer, because it doesn't have much versatility outside of that if you are seasonal specific, but based on thumbnails, I think I've seen it in a decent amount of thumbnails throughout the year, so I don't think it's underrated. I think it's probably perfectly rated, but very good. Next one. This guy is a fucking genius. Ralph Lauren Purple Label. How many years have I been talking about Purple Label at this point? It's gotta be well over 6-7 years at least that I've had Ralph Lauren Purple Label on multiple lists in the space of a Bleecker Street or whatever. This is an incredible scent. It was discontinued at one point, I think for maybe a year, then it came back strong. It was living in that 150-ish space at one point. I don't know what the price point is. I still have my purple label. I think purple label, again, along with that girly ideal cologne, that's another fragrance that's summertime, hot weather comes around. That black currant, that sexy musk, that beautiful conglomerate of fucking fruit, that shit is a sick fragrance. One of the best for me in the entire Ralph Lauren lineup. It just hits off of my skin beautifully. I agree 1,000,000% wildly underrated. And if you haven't tried that fragrance, you are missing out. And finally, Prada Luna Rosa Ocean EDT. Now I recently got the 𝐷 Parfum concentration, which I felt to be really nice. I don't know if I would put it in the underrated category. And how does the EDT differentiate from this one? I don't know. But do these fragrances in the Prada Luna Rosa Ocean line have the capability to get you compliments? 1,000,000%. Are they sexy? Yes. For those who like this type of scent profile, the aquatic-y, ambery scent, I agree 100%. This will get you compliments. This will definitely garner you some attention. And at least the 𝐷 Parfum version is a summertime joint with some body, and hopefully it'll have decent performance because it's a recent acquisition. So I really have tested out a lot more to see what my final determination is as far as performance is concerned. But yeah, maybe it is a wildly underrated one, and I'm gonna have to get my nose on that shit to see if it differentiates itself from 𝐷 Parfum, or is this just taking the cake? So those are just 10 underrated designer fragrances that you guys, well, at least designer fragrances and lines that you guys indicated in the community board are like just sleepers that people need to have in their collection or at least experience. Don't go out and blind buy shit. Try to get yourself some samples. Some of these have a little bit of a higher price point based on hype. Others aren't recognized for shit, but who knows? You could try them out and potentially find your next absolute favorite fragrance. Leave in the comments below which one you think is wildly underrated. One fragrance, best, wildly underrated in the comments, and maybe we'll revisit this and do a part 2. I love y'all mother suckers from the heart. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all bitches next time. You know what is biggest in the game. Salute.
Hey, for all the chicks that got dead in the penthouse suite on top of my mom's crib. It's nonsense, you never get in. It's nonsense that you would think that you would.